Hello everyone. Tonight we explore the story of a person, Suleiman the Magnificent, the unstoppable sultan whose empire stretched from the Mediterranean to the Persian frontiers. A master of war, law, and strategy, his armies crushed rivals, his justice reshaped nations, and his vision forged one of history's greatest empires. Witness the rise of a ruler whose power, cunning, and ambition would leave the world trembling, and whose legacy still commands awe centuries later. In the early dawn of the 16th century, the Ottoman Empire pulsed with ambition and strength, stretching from the shores of the Mediterranean to the rugged hills of Anatolia. It was a realm forged by relentless conquest, yet tempered by law and diplomacy, a land where the sharpness of the sword met the wisdom of scholars. Into this world was born Suleiman, the son of Selim the Fierce and Aisha Hafsa Sultan, a boy whose presence already seemed to command attention. The corridors of Topkapi Palace whispered of his destiny. His gaze, piercing and deliberate, measured not only those who stood before him, but the fate of kingdoms yet to come. From his earliest days, Suleiman's education was rigorous beyond imagination. Scholars, theologians, and military strategists instructed him in languages, history, law, and strategy. By his teenage years, he spoke Turkish, Arabic, and Persian fluently, read poetry, and absorbed the Quran's wisdom with a depth that impressed even the most seasoned tutors. Alongside these studies, he observed the workings of the empire through his father's decrees, absorbing lessons in governance and the subtle balance between justice and authority. Every courtly argument, every diplomatic mission became a classroom for the young prince. Yet education alone could not prepare him for the realities of empire. From a young age, Suleiman accompanied his father on military campaigns, riding beside generals across the rough terrains of eastern Anatolia. He witnessed the chaos of battle, the clash of steel, the thunder of hooves, the cries of soldiers, but also the meticulous planning behind every maneuver. He saw the devastation that followed conflict and the power of strategic genius to turn peril into victory. These experiences shaped a ruler who would one day command both fear and loyalty across continents. As he grew, Suleiman's presence began to inspire those around him. Soldiers, administrators, and even tribal leaders spoke of the young prince with reverence. He possessed a rare combination of intellect and decisiveness, a charisma that drew respect without demanding it. In council chambers, his opinions carried weight beyond his years. In the field, his quiet command instilled courage. It was becoming clear that the empire's future would not merely be inherited, but actively forged by this extraordinary mind, a mind attuned to both the immediacy of conflict and the vision of centuries. Despite his growing promise, the empire was a cauldron of tension. Selim I, though brilliant and ruthless, had left unresolved disputes, rivalries, and ambitions among governors and neighboring kingdoms. Suleiman watched and learned, observing loyalty and betrayal, weakness and strength, as though the empire were a vast chessboard. He plotted his moves not for fleeting glory, but for a lasting legacy, and in the shadows of Istanbul, beneath the rising minarets and the scent of the Bosporus, the young prince felt the first stirrings of a destiny that would sweep through history. As Suleiman approached manhood, the empire's pulse quickened with his father's ambitions and the whisper of approaching change. Every corner of Istanbul, from the bustling bazaars to the marble halls of Topkapi, echoed with the weight of expectation. Suleiman observed closely, noticing how power moved through whispers, gestures, and the careful arrangement of alliances. He learned that strength was not measured solely by armies or wealth, but by the ability to command respect, inspire loyalty, and strike decisively when the moment demanded. The young prince's first taste of true authority came during his inspection of the provincial governors. Traveling across Anatolia, he listened to complaints, measured the fairness of local courts, and enforced decrees with both firmness and compassion. These journeys revealed the vast complexity of the empire, the delicate balance between justice and fear, and the importance of maintaining order without stifling ambition. He realized that an empire could only thrive when its ruler understood the heartbeat of its people, their fears, their hopes, and the threads that bound them together. Suleiman's strategic mind deepened further when he studied the empire's borders, stretching from the Persian frontier to the gates of Vienna. He examined maps, considered alliances, and anticipated threats from the Habsburgs, Safavids, and Mediterranean powers. Military exercises became simulations of war, each maneuver a lesson in command and timing. His tutors noted an almost preternatural grasp of logistics and tactics, while courtiers whispered of a prince whose vision extended far beyond his years, one who could see not just the battlefield before him, but the empire's destiny in the centuries to come. Even as he mastered strategy and governance, Suleiman's personal charisma grew in equal measure. Diplomats, soldiers, and scholars were drawn to his presence. In public ceremonies, he exuded a calm authority, and in private councils, his mind dissected problems with relentless clarity. Those who underestimated him were swiftly reminded of his acuity, while those who earned his trust found a leader whose loyalty was unwavering. The young prince was no longer merely a student of power. He was becoming its embodiment, the axis around which the empire's future would rotate. By the time Suleiman reached his early 20s, the empire stood at the brink of transformation. Selim I's sudden death left a vacuum of authority, and the young prince ascended to the throne amidst both celebration and unease. The world watched as a new sultan took command, a ruler tempered by study, battle, and observation. A leader capable of ruthless decisions tempered by justice. A figure whose intellect, courage, and vision would propel the Ottoman Empire to heights never before imagined. And as the city of Istanbul stirred beneath the golden glow of sunset, the first stirrings of Suleiman's extraordinary reign began, promising conquests, laws, and legacies that would echo across continents and centuries. Suleiman's ascent to the throne was more than a change of rulers. It was the dawn of a new era for the Ottoman Empire. From the moment he was crowned, the young sultan understood that power was both a privilege and a responsibility, a force to be wielded with precision. Istanbul, the heart of his empire, throbbed with anticipation and anxiety. Citizens, soldiers, and foreign envoys alike awaited his first acts, knowing that every decision would set the tone for decades to come. He moved through the city not merely as a sovereign, but as a calculating observer, sensing the pulse of his people, weighing the ambitions of his courtiers, and discerning the intentions of foreign powers. The early months of Suleiman's reign were marked by meticulous reform and consolidation. He scrutinized the empire's administration, identifying inefficiencies and weaknesses that could invite instability. Governors and judges were evaluated not only for loyalty, but for competence. Suleiman's attention to justice became his hallmark. He issued decrees to ensure that laws were applied fairly, yet with the unmistakable presence of imperial authority. Through these acts, he established a reputation that combined fear with admiration, a balance that would define his rule for decades. Military strategy remained central to his vision. Suleiman meticulously reviewed the empire's army, from the elite janissaries to provincial militias. Training drills, logistical planning, and the fortification of borders became daily priorities. He studied past campaigns, analyzing victories and defeats alike, and devised strategies that could project Ottoman power across the Mediterranean, the Balkans, and the Persian frontier. His advisors observed a ruler who could anticipate enemy maneuvers almost instinctively, a leader whose mind was as sharp in council chambers as on the battlefield. Diplomacy, however, was no less vital than war. Suleiman maintained correspondence with European monarchs, Safavid rulers, and distant sultans, negotiating alliances, trade agreements, and truces. Each letter, each envoy, was a piece in a vast game of political chess. The Sultan's patience and foresight allowed him to manipulate complex networks of loyalty and influence, often turning potential threats into opportunities for expansion. The young ruler's presence in these negotiations was commanding. He listened intently, spoke with measured authority, and left an impression that the Ottoman Empire would not merely endure, but dominate. Yet even as he strengthened the foundations of his empire, Suleiman's ambition stirred the flames of conflict. Borders that had long been stable became arenas for expansion and defense. Tensions with the Safavid Empire escalated over contested territories in Persia, while European powers watched with wary eyes as Ottoman influence grew in the Mediterranean. Suleiman recognized that the survival and glory of his empire demanded not only careful governance, but decisive action in war. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting Istanbul in a warm, golden glow, the Sultan prepared to launch campaigns that would forever alter the map of the known world, signaling that the age of Suleiman had truly begun. Even as victory and cultural achievement accumulated, challenges persisted. Rival powers in Europe recalculated strategies, the Safavids in the east continued to press, and internal factions tested loyalty. Suleiman's vigilance remained unbroken. Every campaign, diplomatic maneuver, and administrative reform was carefully weighed for its long-term impact. His intellect and foresight ensured that the Ottoman Empire could respond decisively to threats, while continuing to expand its influence across continents. The European front demanded continued precision. Suleiman's armies executed coordinated campaigns with sieges, artillery bombardments, and cavalry maneuvers designed to preserve strength while maximizing territorial control. Soldiers admired his ability to turn uncertainty into disciplined strategy, recognizing that his genius lay in the combination of courage, foresight, and psychological insight. Each engagement further solidified Ottoman dominance, demonstrating that the empire's expansion was a product not only of military might, but of calculated intelligence and leadership. At home, governance and law reinforced the empire's stability. Codified laws ensured justice, provincial governors were monitored, and taxation systems balanced fairness with efficiency. Suleiman's authority was absolute, yet tempered by fairness, earning respect and loyalty throughout the empire. Internal cohesion amplified the effectiveness of campaigns abroad, creating a self-reinforcing system where military, administrative, and cultural achievements supported one another. The Ottoman Empire became a model of strategic integration, capable of enduring challenges across multiple fronts simultaneously. Cultural and architectural projects reached their zenith. Grand mosques, bridges, and palaces transformed Istanbul into a city of awe and inspiration, while scholars, artists, and poets' theses lived under the Sultan's patronage. Suleiman understood that legacy depended on more than conquest. Knowledge, art, and architecture immortalized his reign. The empire's identity became inseparable from its cultural achievements, intertwining power, intellect, and beauty into a civilization whose influence would endure long after the banners of war were lowered. As Suleiman's life drew toward its close, the Ottoman Empire stood at the height of its glory. Military victories, legal and administrative reforms, and cultural achievements intertwined to create a civilization of unparalleled sophistication and strength. His vision ensured that the empire would endure, its foundations fortified by strategy, justice, and intellect. Suleiman the Magnificent's reign became a testament to the art of leadership, a legacy that would echo across centuries, inspiring awe and admiration long after the sun set over the domes and minarets of Istanbul. The early campaigns of Suleiman's reign revealed not only his tactical brilliance, but also his understanding of the human cost of war. He observed the exhaustion of troops, the anguish of civilians caught between armies, and the fragile loyalties of newly conquered territories. Yet he moved with unflinching resolve, balancing compassion with strategic necessity. His leadership was precise and deliberate. Every march, siege, and maneuver was calculated to maximize efficiency while minimizing unnecessary loss, a reflection of a mind that measured both victory and responsibility. Suleiman's campaigns soon brought him to the gates of Belgrade, a city that had long resisted Ottoman expansion. The siege demanded patience, engineering skill, and the coordination of infantry, artillery, and cavalry. Suleiman oversaw every detail, from the positioning of cannons to the rationing of supplies. The city's walls seemed immovable, Yet the Sultan's persistence and innovative tactics gradually wore down its defenses. Soldiers whispered that the Sultan's gaze alone seemed to predict every weak point, every tactical choice, leaving both allies and enemies in awe of his foresight. While the battles raged, Suleiman remained attuned to the broader implications of his conquests. He recognized that victory was not merely territorial, it was psychological. Demonstrating mercy after submission, he incorporated local elites into administration, allowed religious and cultural practices to continue, and established systems to stabilize newly acquired lands. This combination of military might and political acumen ensured that the Ottoman Empire's reach was sustainable, and it cemented Suleiman's reputation as a ruler who wielded both fear and respect with extraordinary skill. Simultaneously, Suleiman cultivated a court that mirrored his vision for the empire. Scholars, architects, poets, and jurists flourished under his patronage, creating an atmosphere where intellect and creativity were valued alongside martial prowess. Istanbul became a hub of culture and learning, its streets alive with trade, ideas, and architectural marvels that reflected the empire's grandeur. Suleiman understood that the strength of an empire relied as much on the mind as on the sword, and he nurtured both with equal care, building a legacy that extended far beyond military conquest. Yet tension simmered beyond the empire's borders. The Habsburgs in Europe eyed Ottoman advances with suspicion, and the Safavids plotted to reclaim contested lands in Persia. Suleiman's intelligence network, composed of spies, informants, and diplomats, monitored these threats with precision. Every rumor, every movement, and every negotiation was scrutinized, ensuring that the Sultan was never caught unprepared. The empire's survival depended on foresight and adaptability, qualities that Suleiman possessed in extraordinary measure. As the sun dipped behind the minarets of Istanbul, a sense of anticipation gripped the empire, heralding battles that would define not only his reign, but the future of entire regions. The conquest of Belgrade was only the beginning. Suleiman's attention soon turned to Hungary, a land fragmented by internal disputes and vulnerable to the Ottoman tide. He moved with calculated speed, amassing forces while coordinating supply lines across mountains and rivers. Each decision reflected a strategic mind that could weigh geography, enemy disposition, and morale simultaneously. Armies advanced not merely as instruments of war, but as extensions of Suleiman's vision, every maneuver a reflection of his genius in command. In the campaigns that followed, siege warfare became a canvas for Suleiman's intellect. He utilized cannons to dismantle ancient fortifications, engineered elaborate encampments, and implemented communication networks that allowed rapid responses to unexpected threats. His soldiers, the elite janissaries, revered him not only for his tactical brilliance, but for the rare combination of discipline and empathy he displayed. They trusted that their sultan would plan carefully, lead decisively, and protect them from needless peril, forging a bond that made his armies among the most formidable in the world. Meanwhile, Suleiman's legal and administrative reforms strengthened the cohesion of the empire at home. Newly conquered territories were integrated into a system of governance that combined central oversight with local autonomy, ensuring loyalty without stifling the culture or traditions of the people. Courts were refined, taxation systematized, and provincial governors held accountable. Suleiman's understanding of justice was intertwined with strategy. A well-governed population was less likely to rebel, and order at home allowed greater focus on campaigns abroad. Cultural achievements also flourished under Suleiman's patronage, enhancing the empire's prestige alongside its military might. Architects, artisans, and scholars brought the city of Istanbul to life with grand mosques, palaces, and bridges, each a testament to the empire's wealth and vision. The Sultan understood that legacy was not solely measured in conquered lands, but in enduring monuments, literature, and legal codes that would resonate for centuries. By blending conquest with culture, he ensured that the empire's influence would endure long after the battles ended. Yet the horizon remained fraught with challenge. The Safavid threat in the east persisted, and European rivals probed weaknesses along the Danube and Adriatic. Suleiman's mind never rested. Every campaign, Every decree, every diplomatic message was a piece in a vast, intricate game. He understood that greatness demanded constant vigilance, that empires could crumble not only through defeat in battle, but through misjudgment or hesitation. As Istanbul's lights flickered across the Bosporus, the Sultan prepared for the next phase of his remarkable journey, one that would see the Ottoman Empire reach unprecedented heights of power, glory, and influence. Suleiman's conquests had transformed the Ottoman Empire into a formidable power, yet he knew that true dominance required more than victories on the battlefield. It demanded vision, law, and culture intertwined with military might. Istanbul became the center of this grand design, a city pulsing with trade, scholarship, and art. The Sultan's palace reflected both his authority and his intellect. Libraries filled with manuscripts, courtiers versed in law and poetry, and halls where strategies of war were discussed alongside philosophical debates. Suleiman understood that an empire's strength lay as much in its ideas as in its armies. As his armies advanced into Central Europe, Suleiman faced the challenge of maintaining momentum while securing loyalty among diverse populations. He navigated a labyrinth of rival nobility, local customs, and religious tensions, carefully integrating conquered lands into the Ottoman system. Strategic marriages, appointments of capable governors, and subtle displays of power ensured that submission was not merely coerced, but accepted. By blending diplomacy with military strategy, he extended the empire's influence without overextending its resources, reinforcing the principle that true conquest is measured in stability, not just territory. The siege of Rhodes loomed as a pivotal moment, a test of both the Ottoman navy and Suleiman's strategic genius. The Knights Hospitaller held the island with determination, their fortifications challenging even the most advanced artillery. Suleiman orchestrated a campaign that combined relentless bombardment, carefully timed assaults, and psychological warfare. His presence inspired his soldiers, who fought not only for empire, but for the honor of serving a sultan whose mind anticipated every twist of battle. The clash of steel, the roar of cannons, and the disciplined advance of troops displayed the meticulous planning and execution that had become Suleiman's hallmark. At home, Suleiman's vision for justice deepened. Laws were codified to balance Sharia with the practical needs of governance, ensuring fairness while reinforcing imperial authority. Courts became more efficient, corruption diminished, and the rule of law extended across the empire's vast territories. The Sultan's title, Kanuni, the lawgiver, was more than ceremonial. It reflected a ruler determined to shape society according to principles of order and justice. Citizens observed a leader whose power was absolute yet tempered by fairness, and this reputation reverberated across Europe and Asia, enhancing the empire's prestige. Despite victories and reforms, external threats remained constant. The Habsburgs consolidated in Europe, seeking to challenge Ottoman advances, while the Safavids in Persia threatened the eastern borders. Suleiman's intelligence networks monitored rivals tirelessly, gathering information on troop movements, alliances, and political shifts. Every message, every envoy, every reconnaissance mission contributed to a meticulous understanding of the geopolitical landscape. The Sultan's foresight ensured that the empire remained agile, ready to strike decisively when opportunity demanded, while maintaining stability and prosperity at home. The siege of Rhodes ended in a calculated triumph. Suleiman's strategy had combined relentless artillery, clever feints, and disciplined infantry, finally compelling the Knights Hospitaller to surrender. The victory was not merely territorial, it secured Ottoman dominance in the eastern Mediterranean, opened vital trade routes, and demonstrated the empire's capacity to project power across seas. Soldiers and allies alike marveled at the Sultan's blend of patience, intelligence, and decisiveness, while rivals across Europe took note of an empire that could neither be underestimated nor ignored. Following Rhodes, attention turned to the heart of Europe. Suleiman prepared campaigns into Hungary and beyond, understanding that expansion demanded both military skill and diplomatic finesse. He coordinated alliances with local rulers, exploited rivalries, and applied psychological pressure to weaken resistance before battles even began. Each decision reflected a mind that anticipated the enemy's thoughts, a ruler whose ability to combine foresight with force made the Ottoman advance appear almost inevitable. His reputation as both strategist and sovereign grew, echoing far beyond the empire's borders. Suleiman's administrative genius was equally remarkable. Governors in newly conquered territories were instructed in the principles of justice and fairness, balancing central oversight with local autonomy. Trade flourished under the protection of law, while artisans and scholars found patronage in Istanbul. Suleiman understood that a prosperous society strengthened the empire's backbone, enabling it to sustain campaigns abroad. His vision combined the tangible power of armies with the enduring influence of culture and governance, reinforcing the idea that true greatness requires balance between conquest and civilization. Meanwhile, the Safavid threat in the east demanded attention. Suleiman's campaigns against Persia were not mere displays of force, but careful, calculated maneuvers. Supply lines were maintained, local alliances cultivated, and every engagement was designed to maximize advantage while minimizing risk. His armies moved like precise instruments of strategy, reflecting a sultan whose understanding of terrain, timing, and enemy psychology was unmatched. Victory in these regions solidified Ottoman dominance and secured the empire's eastern borders, allowing Suleiman to focus on both governance and further expansion. Yet amidst campaigns and reforms, Suleiman's personal presence became legendary. His charisma, intelligence, and decisiveness inspired loyalty among soldiers, respect among scholars, and fear among rivals. Envoys carried tales of his brilliance and justice across continents, elevating the Ottoman Empire's prestige to unprecedented heights. As Istanbul shimmered under the fading light of day, Suleiman's mind already raced ahead, planning the next conquest, the next reform, the next move that would ensure his empire's greatness endured. The foundations were set. The stage was prepared for achievements that would echo through the ages, cementing Suleiman's place as one of history's most extraordinary rulers. Suleiman's vision for the Ottoman Empire now stretched across continents, but he knew that conquest alone was insufficient to secure lasting power. Every campaign, every decree, every architectural marvel served a larger purpose: to create an empire whose influence would endure long after his own lifetime. Istanbul, already a jewel of culture and governance, became the centerpiece of this ambition. The city thrived with markets, mosques, and schools, each reflecting the empire's wealth, intellect, and aesthetic grandeur. Suleiman's presence was felt in every corner, an invisible hand guiding both justice and progress. In the west, the siege of Vienna loomed as a formidable challenge. The Habsburgs had fortified their positions, determined to halt Ottoman expansion into Central Europe. Suleiman approached the campaign with meticulous planning, coordinating supply lines, intelligence gathering, and troop movements with unparalleled precision. He studied the terrain, analyzed enemy fortifications, and prepared for contingencies, demonstrating a strategic mind capable of foreseeing scenarios far beyond the immediate battlefield. Soldiers recognized in him not just a leader, but a master tactician whose decisions could alter the fate of nations. Simultaneously, Suleiman's legal reforms continued to shape the empire's internal stability. Courts became more efficient, tax systems more equitable, and provincial governance more accountable. The Sultan's codification of laws balanced religious principles with practical governance, earning him the title Kanuni, the lawgiver. Citizens observed a ruler whose authority was absolute yet tempered by fairness, inspiring loyalty and reducing rebellion. These reforms, though administrative, were as powerful as any army, securing the internal cohesion necessary for sustained expansion. Suleiman also understood the subtleties of diplomacy. He engaged with European monarchs, Safavid leaders, and North African rulers with a combination of respect, intimidation, and strategic foresight. Envoys carried messages designed to test loyalties, form alliances, and sow uncertainty among his enemies. Suleiman's reputation for both decisiveness and justice made negotiation an extension of warfare, a way to achieve objectives without unnecessary bloodshed. His empire's influence grew as rivals and allies alike recognized the Sultan's extraordinary capacity to blend intellect with authority. The challenges of expansion and administration were balanced by Suleiman's attention to culture and innovation. Architects, artists, and scholars were encouraged to flourish under his patronage, transforming Istanbul into a beacon of civilization. Mosques, bridges, and public spaces reflected both aesthetic brilliance and functional design, symbolizing the empire's wealth and sophistication. Suleiman recognized that legacy was not measured solely by territory or victories, but by enduring contributions to law, architecture, and knowledge, creating a civilization that would inspire generations. The siege of Vienna tested the full extent of Suleiman's military genius. His forces advanced with precision, artillery pounding fortified walls, while infantry and cavalry executed carefully coordinated maneuvers. Every movement was calculated, every decision measured against both immediate and long-term consequences. The Habsburg defenders, though valiant, faced a strategist whose mind could anticipate their actions before they occurred. Suleiman's command was not only tactical, but psychological. The mere presence of the Sultan on the battlefield instilled both fear and awe. Beyond the battlefield, Suleiman's empire continued to thrive through effective administration. Governors enforced laws consistently, trade routes remained secure, and scholars and artisans flourished in a society that valued intellect as much as strength. By integrating diverse populations, the Sultan created a system where loyalty was cultivated through respect and opportunity rather than coercion alone. His ability to blend governance with military strategy allowed the empire to expand without collapsing under its own weight, ensuring that victories were both enduring and meaningful. Meanwhile, in the eastern provinces, the Safavids remained a persistent threat. Suleiman's campaigns in Persia were precise demonstrations of both force and diplomacy. He secured critical territories while cultivating alliances with local leaders, using a combination of negotiation and decisive military action to solidify Ottoman influence. Every engagement reflected his understanding that strength was measured not just by victories, but by the ability to integrate new territories, stabilize populations, and extend the empire's reach without provoking continuous rebellion. Cultural and architectural achievements continued to define his reign. Grand mosques rose across Istanbul, bridges spanned rivers, and palaces reflected both aesthetic brilliance and functional elegance. Suleiman's patronage attracted scholars, poets, and architects who transformed the empire into a center of knowledge and culture. These contributions were not mere embellishments. They reinforced the empire's identity, projecting power, sophistication, and permanence to subjects and rivals alike. The Ottoman Empire became a civilization whose influence extended beyond politics and war, encompassing art, law, and philosophy. As Suleiman's influence spread, both admiration and envy followed. European powers, witnessing his unmatched combination of intellect, strategy, and charisma, grew wary of Ottoman expansion. Allies and rivals alike recalculated their positions, understanding that the Sultan's reach extended far beyond the battlefield. The empire's stability, coupled with its military and cultural power, established Suleiman as one of the most extraordinary rulers in history. And as the sun set over Istanbul, casting long shadows across the domes and minarets, the stage was set for even greater campaigns, reforms, and legacies that would define an era. By the mid-16th century, Suleiman's reign had transformed the Ottoman Empire into a global power whose influence stretched from the gates of Vienna to the deserts of Arabia. Yet he understood that dominance required more than conquest. It demanded careful governance, legal reform, and cultural sophistication. Istanbul, the heart of the empire, became a living symbol of this vision, a city where commerce, scholarship, and art flourished under the watchful eye of a sultan whose ambition extended beyond mere territory. Every stone, every decree, and every initiative was designed to strengthen both empire and legacy. In the West, the conflict with Hungary and the Habsburgs continued to shape the empire's military focus. Suleiman's campaigns were characterized by meticulous planning, combining siege tactics, rapid cavalry maneuvers, and advanced artillery deployment. Every campaign was a study in precision, balancing aggression with caution, ensuring that victories were decisive yet sustainable. Soldiers respected his strategic foresight, recognizing that their sultan's mind worked as methodically on logistics and morale as it did on battle formations. The battlefield became an extension of his intellect, each maneuver reflecting centuries of accumulated knowledge and instinct. Diplomacy, however, remained an equally vital instrument of power. Suleiman maintained correspondence with European monarchs, North African rulers, and Safavid leaders, negotiating treaties, trade agreements, and alliances. He understood that intelligence, timing, and perception could be as decisive as armies in motion. Envoys carried messages designed to test loyalty, sow uncertainty, and position the Ottoman Empire advantageously. Suleiman's dual approach of diplomacy and military readiness ensured that the empire could expand while maintaining stability, projecting authority that transcended mere force. Meanwhile, the administration at home required constant attention. Suleiman's legal reforms, codifying laws across civil and religious matters, strengthened societal cohesion. Provincial governors were held accountable, courts were made efficient, and taxation systems were rationalized. Citizens observed a ruler whose justice was both feared and respected, and whose vision of governance ensured that loyalty stemmed from fairness rather than coercion alone. By combining administrative rigor with cultural patronage, Suleiman created a society capable of sustaining military campaigns and economic growth simultaneously. Cultural achievements under Suleiman's reign mirrored his military and administrative genius. Mosques, bridges, palaces, and public squares reflected architectural innovation and aesthetic grandeur. Scholars, poets, and artisans thrived under his patronage, contributing to an empire renowned not only for its power, but for its intellectual and artistic achievements. Suleiman understood that enduring influence required legacy beyond conquests. Knowledge, law, and beauty could immortalize an empire long after the banners of war had faded. The Ottoman Empire became a civilization whose reach extended across continents, combining might, intellect, and artistry in a synthesis unmatched in its age. Suleiman's ambitions soon led him to the Mediterranean, where control of strategic ports and islands became crucial for trade and military supremacy. Naval expeditions were planned with the same meticulous care he applied to land campaigns, ensuring supply lines, fleet coordination, and coastal fortifications were flawless. The Ottoman navy, under his direction, became a dominant force, projecting power across the Aegean, Levant, and North African coastlines. Each victory reinforced the empire's influence, demonstrating that Suleiman's authority extended as much over water as over land. The empire's eastern front remained a constant challenge. The Safavids, though formidable, were countered through a combination of decisive military action and strategic alliances with local leaders. Suleiman's campaigns were precise, aimed at securing critical territories while avoiding unnecessary devastation. His ability to integrate conquered lands into the Ottoman administrative and cultural framework minimized rebellion and maximized loyalty. The eastern borders, once vulnerable, became a testament to the Sultan's strategic vision and meticulous planning, ensuring stability for decades. Back in the heart of the empire, Istanbul's streets echoed with the achievements of Suleiman's reign. Markets thrived, mosques soared, and scholars and artists infused the city with knowledge and beauty. Suleiman understood that the strength of an empire relied on more than armies. It required the prosperity, education, and culture of its people. By fostering innovation and intellectual growth, he created an environment in which power, learning, and art reinforced one another, projecting an image of the Ottoman Empire as both formidable and enlightened. Diplomatic maneuvering remained central to Suleiman's strategy. Envoys carried letters to European courts, carefully calibrated to impress, intimize, date, and influence. Alliances were formed and dissolved based on meticulous calculations, every interaction serving the empire's long-term interests. The Sultan's reputation for intelligence, decisiveness, and justice ensured that diplomacy was never passive. It was an extension of strategy, a tool to expand influence, secure borders, and shape perception far beyond the battlefield. Despite his triumphs, Suleiman's reign was defined by constant vigilance. Rivals tested the empire's limits, internal factions tested loyalty, and the balance between conquest and governance demanded continuous attention. The Sultan's mind remained ceaselessly active, analyzing threats, planning campaigns, and refining laws. Every sunrise over Istanbul revealed a ruler whose vision encompassed both immediate challenges and the centuries-long arc of history. Suleiman's era was not merely one of power, but of enduring legacy, as the empire prepared to reach heights unmatched in its age. By this stage of Suleiman's reign, the Ottoman Empire had become an unparalleled force, but the Sultan understood that true greatness demanded more than territorial expansion. Power required vision, culture, law, and unshakable loyalty woven together into a lasting structure. Istanbul was the epicenter of this vision. Bustling markets, gleaming mosques, and vibrant scholarly circles reflected an empire that thrived as much on intellect and artistry as on military might. Suleiman's presence was everywhere, guiding, observing, and ensuring that every initiative strengthened both empire and legacy. The empire's western ambitions intensified as the Habsburgs consolidated their power. Suleiman's campaigns were executed with extraordinary precision, balancing aggressive offensives with careful preparation. Every march, every siege, every deployment of artillery reflected a deep understanding of logistics, terrain, and human psychology. Soldiers trusted in their sultan's strategy, inspired by a leader whose insight seemed to anticipate every movement of the enemy. These campaigns did not merely expand territory, they showcased a level of tactical brilliance that set Suleiman apart from every contemporary ruler. Simultaneously, legal reform continued to solidify internal cohesion. Suleiman codified laws, rationalized taxation, and ensured provincial governance adhered to the principles of justice he had long championed. Courts became more efficient, corruption diminished, and citizens observed a ruler whose fairness reinforced loyalty. Suleiman's title, Kanuni, reflected the profound impact of his legal vision. It was a testament that authority was most enduring when tempered with justice, and that the Ottoman Empire's strength rested on the stability of both law and governance. The Mediterranean remained a strategic theater, requiring naval dominance and careful diplomacy. Suleiman's fleets, strengthened under his oversight, secured vital trade routes and projected Ottoman power across the Aegean and eastern Mediterranean. Alliances were cultivated with North African rulers, while coastal fortifications ensured control of key ports. Naval victories bolstered both the empire's economy and its military prestige, demonstrating that Suleiman's genius extended seamlessly from land to sea, from battlefield to council chamber. Beyond conquest and law, Suleiman nurtured the empire's cultural and intellectual vitality. Architects, poets, scholars, and artists flourished under his patronage. Magnificent mosques and bridges transformed Istanbul into a city of wonder, while libraries and schools cultivated learning. Suleiman understood that lasting legacy required more than victory. It demanded civilization. The fusion of art, law, military strategy, and governance created an empire that inspired both awe and admiration across continents, establishing Suleiman as a ruler whose impact would resonate far beyond his own era. The campaigns in Central Europe demanded Suleiman's full attention. As his armies advanced into Hungary, he combined meticulous planning with strategic innovation. Fortifications were analyzed, supply lines secured, and intelligence on enemy movements gathered with precision. Every engagement was executed with careful timing, demonstrating a sultan who did not rely solely on brute force, but on anticipation, calculation, and psychological insight. Soldiers revered him, inspired by a leader who balanced courage with intellect, transforming battle into both art and science. Meanwhile, Suleiman's diplomacy extended across Europe, Persia, and North Africa. Envoys carried carefully crafted messages, treaties were negotiated, and alliances formed or dissolved based on strategic advantage. The Sultan's reputation for intelligence, fairness, and decisiveness ensured that his words were as influential as his armies. Diplomacy became an extension of military strategy, a tool to expand influence without unnecessary conflict, and a means to project Ottoman power across distant courts with the same authority he commanded on the battlefield. At home, administrative and legal reforms deepened the empire's cohesion. Suleiman's codification of laws ensured that justice was consistently applied across provinces. Governors were accountable, taxation was regulated, and civil administration was strengthened. The empire's subjects observed a ruler whose fairness reinforced loyalty, demonstrating that power could be absolute yet just. These reforms created a stable foundation that allowed military campaigns and cultural projects to flourish simultaneously, intertwining governance with conquest in a seamless network of authority. Cultural achievements under Suleiman flourished alongside military expansion. Mosques, palaces, and bridges transformed the urban landscape of Istanbul, while scholars and artists contributed to a renaissance of learning and creativity. The Sultan recognized that lasting influence extended beyond battlefield victories. Knowledge, architecture, and law would endure through centuries, immortalizing the empire's achievements. Each project reinforced both prestige and control, blending practical governance with visionary artistry to define the character of his reign. Yet the horizon remained fraught with challenge. The Safavids tested Ottoman influence in the east, while European powers watched with suspicion and recalculated alliances. Suleiman's mind never rested. Every message, campaign, and reform was a calculated step in a long-term strategy of survival, power, and legacy. The Sultan's vigilance ensured that the empire remained unshakable, poised to respond to threats decisively. As the sun set over Istanbul, casting golden light across domes and minarets, the empire's destiny continued to unfold under the hand of a ruler whose brilliance and ambition would echo through history. Suleiman's reign had now entered a period where military might, cultural achievement, and administrative brilliance converged. The Ottoman Empire stretched across 3 continents, yet the Sultan understood that such vastness demanded constant attention and refinement. Istanbul remained the empire's beating heart, a city alive with merchants, scholars, and artisans, each contributing to a civilization that reflected both power and intellect. Suleiman's presence infused every initiative, from law reforms to architectural projects, ensuring that the empire's expansion was matched by its cultural and administrative sophistication. In Europe, the Ottoman campaigns pressed deeper into Hungary and the Danube region. Suleiman's military genius was evident in every maneuver. Careful positioning of artillery, rapid cavalry strikes, and psychological strategies designed to undermine enemy morale. Each battle was calculated to maximize victory while preserving the strength of his forces. Soldiers revered their Sultan, understanding that his brilliance turned seemingly insurmountable obstacles into achievable triumphs. The battlefield had become a reflection of Suleiman's mind, where foresight, strategy, and decisiveness converged to create the illusion of inevitability. At the same time, Suleiman's legal reforms reinforced the empire's stability. The codification of laws, fair taxation systems, and accountable provincial governance ensured that newly conquered territories were smoothly integrated. Courts applied justice consistently, corruption was minimized, and loyalty was nurtured through fairness rather than fear alone. The title Kanuni, the lawgiver, captured the essence of Suleiman's vision. That power was enduring when coupled with justice, and that an empire's strength was measured not only by its borders, but by the well-being of its people. The Mediterranean remained an other theatre of both opportunity and challenge. Suleiman's naval campaign secured critical ports, reinforced trade routes, and projected Ottoman power across the Aegean and Levant. Coastal fortifications, fleet coordination, and maritime intelligence ensured dominance over the seas. Naval victories complemented land campaigns, reinforcing the empire's image as an unstoppable force and demonstrating that Suleiman's command extended seamlessly from land to sea. Each conquest reinforced economic and military stability, binding the empire into a cohesive and far-reaching power. Cultural and intellectual life flourished under Suleiman's patronage. Grand mosques, bridges, and public buildings transformed Istanbul, while scholars and poets contributed to a vibrant cultural renaissance. Suleiman recognized that legacy required more than conquest. Architecture, art, and education immortalized his reign. The empire's cultural achievements projected sophistication to both subjects and rivals, cementing the Ottoman Empire as a civilization that combined might, intellect, and beauty in a rare synthesis unmatched in contemporary history. Suleiman's campaigns in the east continued to demand precision and foresight. The Safavids, determined to challenge Ottoman dominance, faced a sultan whose strategies blended military brilliance with diplomatic subtlety. Alliances with local leaders were carefully cultivated, and engagements were designed to secure key territories while minimizing unnecessary devastation. Each maneuver reflected a ruler whose understanding of terrain, supply, and enemy psychology was unmatched, solidifying Ottoman influence across the Persian frontier. In Europe, the threat of the Habsburgs persisted. Suleiman's forces moved methodically, coordinating multi-pronged campaigns that combined siege warfare, artillery precision, and cavalry mobility. The Sultan's foresight ensured that each engagement maximized advantage, conserving resources while expanding the empire's reach. Soldiers recognized in him a leader who could anticipate their enemies' moves, transforming fear and uncertainty into disciplined execution. The aura of Suleiman's command extended beyond strategy, inspiring devotion and loyalty among troops and allies alike. Back in Istanbul, administrative and cultural reforms reinforced the empire's internal strength. Governors enforced laws consistently, trade flourished, and education and scholarship thrived. Suleiman's vision intertwined governance with conquest. A stable, educated, and prosperous society provided the foundation necessary for sustained military campaigns. His codification of laws, balanced with local autonomy, ensured cohesion across vast territories, while cultural achievements projected both prestige and soft power. The empire became not merely a political entity, but a civilization whose influence transcended borders. Naval power remained central to Ottoman strategy. Suleiman's fleets dominated the eastern Mediterranean, securing trade routes and asserting authority over strategic islands and ports. Coordination with North African allies expanded influence and ensured supply lines remained secure. Each naval campaign was planned with the same meticulous attention to logistics and strategy that defined his land campaigns, demonstrating the Sultan's comprehensive mastery over all theaters of power. The seas became an extension of his will, projecting Ottoman dominance across continents and reinforcing the empire's economic and military strength. Despite victories and cultural achievements, threats persisted. Rivals in Europe and Persia recalculated strategies, envoys delivered intelligence, and internal factions tested loyalty. Suleiman's mind never rested. Every message, campaign, and reform was weighed and measured for its long-term impact. Istanbul, illuminated by the golden sunset over the Bosporus, reflected an empire in motion, guided by a ruler whose brilliance and ambition ensured that the Ottoman Empire's legacy would endure across centuries. Every decision, every campaign, every law strengthened the foundations of a civilization destined for greatness. As Suleiman's empire expanded, his attention increasingly balanced between the immediacy of war and the subtleties of governance. While campaigns continued in Europe and the East, he meticulously strengthened administrative structures at home. Provincial governors were monitored for competence and loyalty, courts were refined to ensure justice, and taxation systems were streamlined. Suleiman understood that the empire's endurance depended as much on civic stability as on military victories, and he applied the same discipline to governance as he did to strategy on the battlefield. The campaigns in Hungary and along the Danube showcased Suleiman's strategic brilliance. Siege warfare, rapid cavalry strikes, and coordinated artillery assaults reflected a calculated approach designed to conserve resources while achieving decisive victories. Soldiers marveled at the Sultan's capacity to foresee enemy movements and adapt tactics instantaneously. Every engagement was a testament to his genius, transforming the chaos of war into a disciplined, almost predictable, orchestration of strategy and human endurance. Naval power remained a cornerstone of Ottoman dominance. Suleiman's fleets controlled key Mediterranean trade routes, projecting influence across the Aegean, Levant, and North African coasts. Coastal fortifications were strengthened, supply lines secured, and alliances cultivated with regional powers. Naval campaigns complemented land operations, creating a dual-front system of dominance that reinforced the empire's economic, military, and political supremacy. Suleiman's foresight ensured that the seas were not merely a theatre of war, but a tool for enduring influence and strategic security. Cultural patronage flourished under Suleiman's guidance. Mosques, palaces, and bridges transformed Istanbul into a city that radiated sophistication and power. Scholars, poets, and architects thrived, contributing to a renaissance of knowledge and artistry. The Sultan recognized that legacy required more than conquest. It demanded civilization. By intertwining cultural achievements with military and administrative prowess, he ensured that the Ottoman Empire would be remembered not only for its might, but for its intellect, law, and architectural brilliance. Meanwhile, the Eastern Front remained tense. The Safavids consistently challenged Ottoman authority, prompting campaigns designed to secure borders, cultivate alliances, and minimize unrest. Suleiman's strategy combined calculated force with diplomacy, ensuring that victories were sustainable and populations were integrated into the Ottoman administrative system. This dual approach reinforced the empire's cohesion, demonstrating that Suleiman's genius extended beyond the battlefield into the realms of governance, diplomacy, and long-term strategic vision. Suleiman's campaigns in Central Europe tested the full extent of his strategic vision. The Habsburgs fortified positions along the Danube, yet the Sultan's careful planning, precise artillery deployment, and psychological tactics consistently outmaneuvered them. Soldiers admired not only his intellect, but his courage. His presence on the battlefield inspired loyalty and instilled fear among enemies. Each engagement demonstrated that Suleiman's genius was not brute force alone, but a combination of foresight, calculation, and psychological mastery. The administration at home reinforced the empire's expansion abroad. Suleiman's codification of laws ensured justice across provinces, governors were held accountable, and taxation was systematized to maintain fairness while supporting military campaigns. Citizens recognized a ruler whose power was tempered by reason and fairness. This legal and administrative stability provided the foundation for sustained military success, allowing the empire to grow without succumbing to internal disorder or rebellion. Suleiman's governance was as strategic as his campaigns, ensuring longevity through balanced authority. Cultural and architectural achievements continued to define the empire's identity. Grand mosques, palaces, and public buildings transformed Istanbul into a hub of intellect, art, and architectural brilliance. Suleiman understood that enduring legacy required more than conquest. Knowledge, beauty, and learning immortalized the empire's achievements. Artists, scholars, and architects thrived under his patronage, projecting sophistication that rivaled his military reputation. The empire became a civilization whose influence extended far beyond politics or war, intertwining might with intellect and culture. Naval campaigns maintained Ottoman supremacy across the Mediterranean. Control of strategic ports, dominance over trade, routes, and coordination with regional allies ensured that the empire could project power across continents. Suleiman's attention to both land and sea reinforced economic stability and military readiness. The duality of command, balancing terrestrial conquest with maritime dominance, demonstrated a ruler whose vision encompassed all facets of power, combining intellect, strategy, and foresight into a cohesive system of authority. Despite victories, challenges persisted. Rival powers in Europe recalculated strategies. Internal factions tested loyalty, and the empire faced the ongoing threat of the Safavids in the east. Suleiman's vigilance never waned. Intelligence, diplomacy, and strategy worked in concert to protect and expand Ottoman influence. As Istanbul's skyline shimmered beneath the setting sun, the empire's future remained under the careful guidance of a sultan whose brilliance, ambition, and vision would define not only his era but the centuries that followed, solidifying his place among history's greatest rulers. By this stage, Suleiman's empire had reached its pinnacle, stretching from the gates of Vienna to the Persian frontiers and across the Mediterranean. Yet the Sultan understood that supremacy required constant vigilance. Istanbul, the empire's heart, pulsed with trade, scholarship, and art, reflecting both prosperity and the careful governance that sustained it. Suleiman's presence guided every initiative, ensuring that legal reform, cultural development, and military campaigns worked together to fortify the empire and enhance his enduring legacy. The Hungarian campaigns demanded extraordinary strategy. Suleiman's forces advanced with precision, combining artillery bombardments, rapid cavalry maneuvers, and psychological tactics to undermine enemy morale. Each siege was executed with a meticulous balance of aggression and caution, preserving the strength of his armies while maximizing territorial gain. Soldiers admired the Sultan not only for his intellect, but for his courage, understanding that his decisions transformed chaos into disciplined strategy and inevitable success. Legal and administrative reforms continued to fortify the empire. Suleiman codified laws, streamlined taxation, and monitored governors to ensure effective governance. The Kanuni title reflected his enduring commitment to justice, demonstrating that authority was most sustainable when balanced with fairness. Citizens recognized a ruler whose power was tempered by reason, fostering loyalty and stability throughout the empire. The careful integration of law, governance, and military strength ensured that the Ottoman Empire could maintain dominance while nurturing internal cohesion. Naval supremacy was essential for sustaining the empire's influence across the Mediterranean. Suleiman's fleets dominated strategic trade routes, secured ports, and coordinated with North African allies to ensure continuous control. Maritime campaigns reinforced the empire's economic and military position, while coastal fortifications strengthened territorial security. Each naval operation reflected the Sultan's meticulous attention to logistics, strategy, and foresight, demonstrating his comprehensive mastery of both land and sea operations. Cultural achievements flourished alongside military and administrative successes. Istanbul's skyline rose with grand mosques, bridges, and public buildings, while scholars and artists contributed to a vibrant intellectual and artistic renaissance. Suleiman recognized that legacy extended beyond conquest. Knowledge, architecture, and law immortalized his reign. The empire became a civilization whose power and sophistication resonated across continents, establishing a ruler whose influence transcended mere battlefield victories to encompass intellect, culture, and lasting authority. The campaigns in Central Europe reached a critical phase. The Habsburgs, determined to resist Ottoman expansion, fortified positions along the Danube. Suleiman's approach combined precise artillery placement, rapid cavalry maneuvers, and coordinated infantry advances. Each battle reflected strategic brilliance, preserving Ottoman strength while exerting maximum pressure on the enemy. Soldiers admired the Sultan's foresight, courage, and ability to transform uncertainty into disciplined execution, turning the tide of campaigns into predictable success. Administrative efficiency at home ensured the empire could sustain these ambitious campaigns. Suleiman's codified laws reinforced justice, governors were held accountable, and taxation systems were rationalized. Citizens observed a ruler whose authority was absolute yet fair, understanding that loyalty stemmed from respect rather than fear alone. The integration of law, governance, and military strategy created an empire capable of maintaining expansion without internal instability, illustrating that enduring power is rooted in both justice and strategic vision. Cultural and intellectual growth continued to define Suleiman's legacy. Grand mosques, bridges, and palaces reflected architectural mastery, while poets, scholars, and artists flourished under the Sultan's patronage. Knowledge and beauty became extensions of power, reinforcing the empire's identity and prestige. Suleiman's reign demonstrated that military conquest alone could not ensure permanence. Lasting influence required the cultivation of culture, intellect, and societal sophistication. The Ottoman Empire became a civilization whose achievements would resonate across centuries. Naval operations maintained Ottoman supremacy across the Mediterranean. Strategic ports were secured, trade routes dominated, and alliances with North African powers strengthened the empire's reach. Suleiman's meticulous coordination ensured that maritime and terrestrial operations complemented each other, projecting power across continents. The dual mastery of land and sea reinforced the empire's economic and military security, demonstrating the Sultan's comprehensive vision and strategic prowess in all theaters of power. Even as victories accumulated, challenges persisted. Rival powers in Europe and Persia recalculated alliances, intelligence networks monitored movements, and internal factions tested loyalty. Suleiman's vigilance never waned. Every message, campaign, and reform was weighed for long-term impact. As Istanbul glimmered beneath the evening sun, the Sultan's ambition, intellect, and foresight ensured that the empire's legacy would endure. The stage was set for continued dominance, leaving a mark on history that would define the era and cement Suleiman's place as one of its greatest rulers. Suleiman's later years were marked by the delicate balance between consolidation and expansion. While campaigns in Europe and the East continued, he increasingly focused on ensuring that the empire's foundations were unshakable. Istanbul remained a symbol of Ottoman grandeur, bustling with commerce, art, and scholarship. Every initiative, from legal reforms to architectural projects, reflected a ruler whose vision extended beyond immediate conquest to enduring influence, blending governance, culture, and military strategy into a seamless framework of power. The Hungarian front remained critical to Ottoman ambitions. Suleiman's army advanced with calculated precision, employing sieges, artillery barrages, and rapid cavalry strikes. Each engagement was carefully orchestrated, designed to weaken the enemy while preserving Ottoman strength. Soldiers revered the Sultan's foresight and decisiveness, understanding that his strategic mind transformed battlefield chaos into predictable, disciplined success. These campaigns demonstrated that Suleiman's genius lay not only in raw power, but in the meticulous application of intelligence, timing, and psychology. Legal reform continued to solidify internal stability. Suleiman's codification of laws, efficient court systems, and accountable provincial governance reinforced loyalty and minimized unrest. Citizens witnessed a ruler who wielded absolute power with fairness, earning respect across social strata. The integration of governance and military strategy allowed the empire to expand without destabilization, illustrating that enduring authority requires both might and justice. Suleiman's legal vision became a cornerstone of his legacy, ensuring that the empire could withstand challenges far beyond his lifetime. Naval dominance remained a key component of Ottoman strength. Suleiman's fleets secured critical Mediterranean trade routes, coordinated with regional allies, and maintained control of strategic ports. Maritime campaigns complemented land operations, reinforcing economic security and extending Ottoman influence across continents. Every naval maneuver was planned with the same precision that characterized land campaigns, reflecting the Sultan's mastery of both logistical complexity and strategic foresight. The seas became a theater where his authority projected far beyond borders, ensuring the empire's enduring supremacy. Cultural patronage continued to flourish under Suleiman's guidance. Grand mosques, bridges, and palaces transformed Istanbul's skyline, while scholars, artists, and poets contributed to a renaissance of intellect and creativity. Suleiman understood that lasting legacy depended not only on conquest, but on knowledge, art, and architecture. His reign created a civilization whose identity and influence extended across continents, intertwining power with intellect and culture, and ensuring that the Ottoman Empire would be remembered not merely as a military force, but as a beacon of civilization and governance. The Eastern Front remained a delicate challenge. The Safavids, determined to contest Ottoman authority, faced a sultan whose strategies balanced decisive military action with careful diplomacy. Alliances with local leaders were meticulously cultivated, while campaigns were executed to secure key territories and integrate populations into the empire's administrative framework. Suleiman's ability to blend force with negotiation ensured that victories were sustainable and that the empire's influence extended beyond mere conquest, demonstrating strategic foresight unmatched by contemporary rulers. In Europe, the Habsburg threat required continued vigilance. Suleiman's forces executed coordinated campaigns along the Danube, combining siege tactics, cavalry maneuvers, and psychological strategies. Each engagement preserved Ottoman strength while maximizing territorial gains, reflecting the Sultan's exceptional foresight and adaptability. Soldiers revered him not only for his intellect and courage, but also for his ability to turn uncertainty into disciplined, methodical success. His campaigns exemplified how leadership, strategy, and psychology converged in the making of an indomitable empire. At home, administrative and legal efficiency reinforced military and diplomatic efforts. Suleiman's codification of laws ensured justice across provinces, governors were held accountable, and taxation systems maintained fairness while funding campaigns. Citizens recognized a ruler whose authority was absolute yet tempered with reason, earning loyalty and respect across diverse populations. The empire's internal cohesion became a force multiplier, allowing military victories to be reinforced by stable governance and demonstrating that lasting power depends equally on structure as on conquest. Cultural achievements further solidified Suleiman's enduring legacy. Istanbul became a hub of intellectual, artistic, and architectural brilliance. Mosques, bridges, palaces, and public buildings reflected both grandeur and functionality, while scholars and artists flourished under the Sultan's patronage. Suleiman understood that civilization itself could be wielded as a tool of influence, projecting Ottoman prestige across continents. The empire's identity became inseparable from its cultural and intellectual achievements, intertwining power, beauty, and knowledge into a lasting testament to his reign. Despite his successes, Suleiman's vigilance never wavered. Rivals across Europe and Persia recalculated strategies, internal factions tested loyalty, and every campaign, reform, and diplomatic maneuver required careful oversight. The Sultan's mind remained ceaselessly active, guiding the empire through both opportunity and threat. As Istanbul's skyline shimmered beneath the setting sun, the Ottoman Empire stood as a testament to his brilliance, an unparalleled civilization shaped by intellect, justice, strategy, and culture, ready to endure the tides of history. Suleiman's final years were marked by a profound awareness of legacy. The Ottoman Empire had grown into a global power, stretching across Europe, Asia, and Africa. Yet the Sultan understood that true greatness required more than conquest. Istanbul, the empire's heart, pulsed with commerce, scholarship, and culture. Every initiative, from legal reform to architectural grandeur, reflected a ruler who envisioned not only immediate dominance, but an enduring civilization, one capable of sustaining power, intellect, and artistry across generations. The campaigns in Central Europe demanded precise strategy. Suleiman's forces advanced along the Danube with coordinated sieges, artillery, and cavalry maneuvers, combining skillful timing with psychological acumen. Each battle was carefully orchestrated to conserve resources while maximizing impact. Soldiers revered the Sultan's intellect and courage, recognizing in him a leader whose strategic genius turned uncertainty into disciplined execution. The empire's military successes were the result of foresight, planning, and an unmatched understanding of human behavior in conflict. Administration and law continued to underpin Ottoman strength. Suleiman's codification of laws provided consistent justice across provinces, while governors were held accountable and taxation was rationalized. Citizens observed a ruler whose power was absolute yet tempered with fairness, cultivating loyalty and stability. This careful integration of governance and military strategy ensured that victories abroad were supported by secure, well-ordered provinces at home. Suleiman's legal vision, the hallmark of his title Kanuni, became a cornerstone of his enduring legacy. Naval dominance remained central to Ottoman authority. Suleiman's fleets controlled vital Mediterranean trade routes, secured key ports, and maintained alliances with North African powers. Maritime operations complemented land campaigns, ensuring the empire's reach extended across continents. Every naval expedition reflected meticulous planning, demonstrating that Suleiman's genius encompassed both terrestrial and maritime strategy. The empire's supremacy was reinforced by his ability to orchestrate complex operations across multiple theaters simultaneously, showcasing unmatched strategic foresight. Cultural and intellectual achievements flourished alongside military campaigns. Istanbul's skyline was transformed by grand mosques, bridges, and palaces, while scholars, poets, and artists thrived under Suleiman's patronage. The Sultan recognized that lasting influence depended not only on conquest, but on civilization itself. Knowledge, beauty, and architecture became instruments of power, cementing the empire's identity and projecting Ottoman prestige far beyond its borders. Suleiman's reign embodied the synthesis of strategy, governance, and culture that defined the zenith of Ottoman history. Even as victory and cultural achievement accumulated, challenges persisted. Rival powers in Europe recalculated strategies, the Safavids in the east continued to press, and internal factions tested loyalty. Suleiman's vigilance remained unbroken. Every campaign, diplomatic maneuver, and administrative reform was carefully weighed for its long-term impact. His intellect and foresight ensured that the Ottoman Empire could respond decisively to threats, while continuing to expand its influence across continents. The European front demanded continued precision. Suleiman's armies executed coordinated campaigns with sieges, artillery bombardments, and cavalry maneuvers designed to preserve strength while maximizing territorial control. Soldiers admired his ability to turn uncertainty into disciplined strategy, recognizing that his genius lay in the combination of courage, foresight, and psychological insight. Each engagement further solidified Ottoman dominance, demonstrating that the empire's expansion was a product not only of military might, but of calculated intelligence and leadership. At home, governance and law reinforced the empire's stability. Codified laws ensured justice, provincial governors were monitored, and taxation systems balanced fairness with efficiency. Suleiman's authority was absolute, yet tempered by fairness, earning respect and loyalty throughout the empire. Internal cohesion amplified the effectiveness of campaigns abroad, creating a self-reinforcing system where military, administrative, and cultural achievements supported one another. The Ottoman Empire became a model of strategic integration, capable of enduring challenges across multiple fronts simultaneously. Cultural and architectural projects reached their zenith. Grand mosques, bridges, and palaces transformed Istanbul into a city of awe and inspiration, while scholars, artists, and poets' theses lived under the Sultan's patronage. Suleiman understood that legacy depended on more than conquest. Knowledge, art, and architecture immortalized his reign. The empire's identity became inseparable from its cultural achievements, intertwining power, intellect, and beauty into a civilization whose influence would endure long after the banners of war were lowered. As Suleiman's life drew toward its close, the Ottoman Empire stood at the height of its glory. Military victories, legal and administrative reforms, and cultural achievements intertwined to create a civilization of unparalleled sophistication and strength. His vision ensured that the empire would endure, its foundations fortified by strategy, justice, and intellect. Suleiman the Magnificent's reign became a testament to the art of leadership, a legacy that would echo across centuries, inspiring awe and admiration long after the sun set over the domes and minarets of Istanbul.